And now, AM 650 presents your source for leading-edge news and information on today's hottest products and services. This is Experts on Call on AM 650.
Good evening and welcome to the program. It's Quay Pacific's Talk About Strata on this episode of Experts on Call. I'm Sterling Fox, joined as always by my co-host, the Executive Director of the Condominium Homeowners Association of British Columbia and Vancouver Province condo columnist, Tony Giavento. Good to see you again.
Hey, it's good to see you too, Sterling. I hear you had an anniversary of sorts.
As a matter of fact, I did about a week or so ago. 40 years on the radio in Vancouver.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
That's amazing.
It certainly is. I still kind of pinch myself every now and then, but thank you for noticing. I appreciate that. We have a guest with us in studio. Joining us is Sean Lang, who's president of Interprovincial Roof Consultants. Sean and I have actually huddled up on the airwaves on Boomer Life in the past. Nice to see you again, Sean.
Nice to see you too.
Now, what has brought you to join us on Quay Pacific's Talk About Strata? Tony, why did you seek out Sean and his company for our program tonight?
Well, Strata corporations now are discovering, while they're doing their depreciation reports, and we have a big wave of developments that are aging at a rapid rate, that they are now faced with major construction, a lot of it having to do with the renewals of roofing cycles and those types of products. And Sean's company specializes in assisting Strata corporations and clients in general, basically with their technical services, maintenance, inspection services, looking at their renewal schedules, and helping them to basically navigate through all the waters of when do we get our roof done and who does it and how do we go about the process and how do we actually do bids and what are the right products and what are the right materials and what's the right time of year, and most important, how much is it going to cost us. So it's a good way to be able to walk through just the whole theme of how a Strata corporation is going to navigate through replacing their roof.
Right, and Sean, when you and I were talking or have talked in the past, a lot of my focus has been on the individual homeowner and their concerns, but you keep reminding us that you are, in fact, you were at a Strata Council meeting last night, for crying out loud. Your company does a lot of work with Strata councils of all sizes all over BC.
Yeah, Stratas do end up being a large part of our business. We deal with all different sizes. Most of our business is either Stratas or industrial style buildings, but Stratas do end up being a large part of it. There is a lot of volume of roofing in those complexes, and it has to be dealt with in a proper way. So they typically will seek us out to try and guide them through the process.
Right, and the evolution of major construction, I think you could sort of underline as the theme for the show. And Tony, anyone living in any Strata environment everywhere understands, I think to some degree, that eventually, even if it's brand spanking new and you can still smell the paint, eventually there's going to need to be some work done on this environment.
Well, and you're absolutely right. And I think one of the things that Sean and I were talking about earlier is even on new roofing, new construction, that the buildings change dynamically in the first 5 years of the building, especially if they're wood frame buildings. So things like roofing inspections and maintenance programs on roofs, especially for new construction, will really help people get value out of their warranties for the first 5-year period if there's any claims.
Right.
And be able to prolong the life of the building and the roofing system. And so, there's some critical steps that Strata corporations need to take, both to maintain and prolong the life of the roofing, but at the same time be able to plan for its replacement. And planning for it with lots of time in advance gives them time to be able to plan for the money, the funding, and being able to do things like have meetings and decision making, so when they're ready to do the roof, they do it before it fails and before it costs them money that they start paying for twice.
Sure. Now, Sean, at Interprovincial Roof Consultants, how much of your work is devoted to what Tony was just talking about, the inspection and ongoing maintenance of roofs versus being brought in to consult on a repair or a renovation job?
Well, they all go hand in hand, really. And our work involves all different aspects of every different type of roofing situation.
Okay.
So we handle projects going from, when people just start to get the idea that their roof is becoming a problem. We'll start to help them along at that point. We handle projects from the beginning when they're new. We'll go over the roof when it's new before it's handed over to the owners.
Oh,
and
okay. A final checkout kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And also during the installation of that new roof system. So we work with a lot of roofing contractors that are working themselves with the general contractor who are working for the client. when the building is being built and the roof system is being installed. So we can jump in at any point, whether it's at the end of a roof's life or at the beginning of a roof's life, midway, when they want to do maintenance programs to try and extend the life as long as they can and prolong the inevitable replacement.
Mm-hmm. As always, or has become the case in recent episodes of Quay Pacific's Talk About Strata, the lines are wide open. This is a live program, and you are most welcome to jump in with your inquiries, your questions, your comments, and observations. It is 604-280-0650. That's the local number, and if you're trying to reach us from out of town, got you covered at 1-877-280-0650. This is Quay Pacific's Talk About Strata. Tony, further to what Sean was saying, and Strata councils, let me use this as an example, and I think I've mentioned this to you in the past. I have a friend who was the president of a Strata council, a small townhouse, 18-unit strata in Kitsilano. And she doesn't have any kind of technical or industrial background whatsoever. But she tried to do a good job, and she said her biggest problem, aside from getting the individual residents or owners of the strata units to pony up the dough when it came time to meet some expense issues, the other part was bringing information to council. She, the president, was the person that you would speak to, Sean. For example, if you went out on a roof consulting job, you would speak to the Strata Council president.
Yep.
You would give her the information and your recommendations, and that president in turn takes them back. She said she's not an expert on any of this stuff. She has no background in any of this. She had to rely and trust individuals to be fair and honest with her, and the frustration was sometimes she knew that wasn't happening, but didn't have the technical background to say, oh, that's rubbish.
When she was dealing with the roofers, you meant?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or any other major contractors
Yeah.
for renovation work.
Yeah, it helps to have somebody, hold your hand through the process, and a consultant can go a long way, whether it's the financial aspect of it, trying to help with developing what it might cost, the budget figures and such, to designing the scope of work to fit that budget as you get to that point. But even just, light conversations about what they should do in the course of the project, or just doing maintenance on the project. The consultant can jump in and provide a lot of help or a little help, depending on what the person really needs.
So if the Strata president is smart, Tony, and you encounter all kinds of Strata Council presidents, they'll be doing good homework, and they'll seek out the advice of consultants before even the bidding process begins, or before they have to go back to council with some kind of recommendation.
Well, actually, I don't think the Strata Council president should be acting independently. And I think that's part of the problem.
Okay.
When individuals on Strata Council take on projects without the knowledge or without the direction of the rest of the council.
And is that because they assume the responsibility and perhaps aren't willing to share it?
That could be it. Could be a variety of things.
Okay.
Could be personalities. Could be the fact that nobody else on council wants to do anything.
It, exactly.
It could be a variety of reasons. But there isn't any special powers bestowed on any special council member.
Okay.
Contractors have to rely on someone, and it's often the president of Strata Council, and they can rely on that in good faith that person has the authority to do it. But very, very frequently we get complaints about council members who've just gone off and done things the rest of the council don't know anything about.
Right.
They've contacted contractors. They've given away information they shouldn't be giving away. They've entered into agreements they didn't have the authority to enter into, and that's problematic because it's the council collectively. One of the underlying problems, though, that Strata corporations have is they don't acknowledge that council members are exactly the same as all the other owners.
Right.
They're all volunteers.
Right.
Right. And so
they're all in it together.
Well, and we have a group of volunteers. So how do we help the group of volunteers make good decisions? And we help them make good decisions by giving them the funds they need to be able to hire the people who are qualified to make these decisions.
People like Sean. Okay.
Right? We hire consultants. We hire people who are independent of the eventual process, where we don't set up people to be in conflict of interest.
Right.
Right. You have the president of the Strata Council who says, my brother is a roofing company. We're just going to hire him. He says that if we go to a tendering process, it's just going to cost us more money, and everything is just going to be far more inflated, and it's not worth it. Let's just negotiate a price and we'll get it done. And that turns badly more often than not, because there is very frequently nothing in writing.
Right.
There are no fixed terms and conditions of what's being delivered, and there's all kinds of other associated contractually related problems with that. but strata corporations need to think about the sequence. The sequence is we get a depreciation report. We finally got this report in our hands, and it says in 2018 we're going to need a new roof. So when do you think it's logical to start planning for the roof?
Right away.
Right away. 2018 is not that far away. It's 4 years away.
Right.
So, our first thing should be we have an inspection on the roof to find out, are there maintenance items that we can be doing to anticipate extending the life of the roof?
Oh, okay.
Maybe the life is shorter than 2018. Maybe the estimate is off. Maybe, in fact, it's 2016 that we should be looking at the roof. And the values that we get in the report, it says 2018 we need a new roof, and the new roof is going to cost $150,000. That's only generally based upon a broad assessment of the existing material and the area that's being covered. Right. It doesn't consider the fact that there might have to be design changes to the roof. There may be damage. There may be other things that have to be modified. That material may not exist anymore. There may be a variety of changes that will significantly change the outcome of the roof. So the Strata Corporation needs to fund long in advance money for consultants.
Absolutely.
So the consultant or the inspector can come on site, look at the roof, give them an evaluation of the roof, help them with existing maintenance issues, and help them with the planning process.
Sean, how do your arrangements go when you're retained, when Interprovincial Roof Consultants is retained by a strata council to come in and do an inspection job and give an estimate if indeed repairs are necessary now, and plus, going to Tony's point, we know we're going to need this roof redone in 3, 4, 5 years. When you go in and provide this information, I assume there's a flat fee involved.
Yeah.
And unlike a contractor, I would suspect not a lot of hidden costs.
No, not for us to do a report.
Right,
I mean, basically, we can quote a simple phone call, give us the address, we can Google it or look it up on with satellite imagery. We can tell what the building looks like, and we can give you a quote to come out and have a look at it.
Right.
And again, it goes back to how deep you want us to get involved in it. We can come out and do a very light review and just basically say, you've got a good roof system or you've got a bad roof system. Mm-hmm. Or we can get intense and we can look at every single detail on the building and do core sampling and look at ventilation and look at wall issues and everything and write up a full report that could be 100 pages long with photos and comments that are all correlated. So the depth that we're involved really varies, but it goes a long way towards that future planning. And back to what Tony said about they know they have to do the roof in 2018. Mm-hmm. Well, assessing a roof now might get you that result that you think in 2018, but that can change because a roof is a very dynamic structure, and it's under the forces of weather and its own expansion, contraction, and other building issues. That projection can change. So reviewing the roof system every year or 2 years at the most is very beneficial into making sure that projection isn't coming sooner. Or could it be extended longer? Because it goes both ways.
Well, and we have a caller that we want to get to, but before we do that, the other benefit that's changing is we've had another tabled change in our legislation in the last week when it comes to depreciation reports and how people access money, and this ties right into the long-term planning of renewal of your products.
Well, especially if you've got an expensive job coming up in a few years, why not start setting aside funds for it now so you don't get whacked in that final year?
Well, under the tabled change in the legislation, if you have a depreciation item in your report that requires renewal, you will be able to withdraw that money from your reserve funds now by majority vote. It won't be a 3/4 vote any longer. So we're now contributing by majority vote, and depreciation reports, items identified in depreciation reports, the strata will be able to draw those funds by a majority vote at a general meeting. And so it's going to be much easier for stratas to start doing long-term planning. If I know we need $200,000 over the next 4 years to go into the roof fund, we can be building enough money into our contingency each year over the next 4 years so that owners can be paying over 12-month periods over the next 4 years, which is so much easier for everybody who lives in the buildings.
Oh, absolutely, because some of these, Sean, you do this for a living, some of these roofing, the costs attached are just absolutely staggering.
Yeah, they get pretty large.
Yeah. Let's get to the phone board, 604-280-0650. From out of town, it's 1-877-280-0650. We'll start here in Metro Vancouver in Surrey. Leonard, good evening.
Yes, good evening. Yes, I would like to add a comment on that. The depreciation, which was instigated or instituted by the government a couple of years back, and what had to be done as of this December, or
last December,
this December,
right?
Which we did, and had a company. They have since come in and completed. Now, so They completed it, charged us over $3,000. And here, I'll just give you one of the lines from their survey. This report has been prepared after a site visit review of any existing drawings and records available to us. No testing or calculations of the building services and equipment have been done.
Right.
And this report reflects the best judgments based on information provided at the time of preparations. In other words, it's not a depreciation report, and they say it's not a depreciation report. So what are we paying for? We have looked after our place, and it's been built since '93.
Uh-huh.
And have looked after. We also looked at the roof and found that there was problems, and a lot of these problems were because the builders that did it didn't do proper jobs. So we had to replace it in 2011.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, to the matter of the depreciation report, Tony.
Well, the depreciation report isn't about doing testing on buildings. There is no destructive testing on buildings, and it's a minimal amount of survey of the building systems. There'll be a visual assessment of the building systems. There will be some quantities and values. They will be based upon what the common property and common assets of the corporation are. It gives the Strata Corporation a look into the window of the future of what they can anticipate their costs and renewals are. Also gives a document to all the parties, people like buyers, mortgage providers, people who have other interests in the property, to disclose what the future liabilities are going to be like. And it's a huge benefit for owners. You know, a lot of strata corporations have had depreciation reports and have said, we don't want to increase our strata fees, even though we know we have bigger events coming up in the future. You know what? For the first time now, at least the owners know individually, I'm going to be paying for this share of this roof in 2018.
Right.
I can start saving. You know, most people in strata corporations, you know, in Leonard's strata, it sounds like they've been actually a really well-run strata that's been well maintained.
Yeah.
And, you know, and good for them, because there are not a lot of them out there. But in most strata corporations, most owners go home, go into their units and lock their doors, and they don't think about their building systems. And then they act surprised when the AGM comes up and there's a $700,000 special levy and people are there protesting against it. Well, it costs money to maintain buildings over the long term.
Absolutely.
So,
You know, Sean is nodding vigorously as you're talking about this, because you go to these AGMs and you appear before strata councils constantly.
Yeah, we do, and you know, we provide some information when they need it, because basically our services as a consultant, we focus directly on the roofing. So when we come out and do a report, we're looking at the roof and we're going to talk only about the roof, and anything that adjoins the roof and might cause the roof to fail or appear to fail, like if a wall leaks or whatever. So these depreciation reports are good. They give you an indication as to what state your building's in, sort of, but they don't give you the finer points and the in-depth analysis.
And that's what you were talking about earlier in terms of the type of report that you do at Interprovincial Roof Consultants, because you can do whatever they ask you to do. They want a super in-depth 100-pager, no problem. But Leonard was talking about a $3,000 sort of basically skimming the surface overview. And was that number that he was charged, is that kind of in line? Is that pretty standard stuff? Tony, do you recognize that as a...
We don't know. We don't know how many units they were. We don't know how old the complex is, how complicated their building system is. So
it does vary on the size. Like even just from the reports that we do, when we look at a building, we have to look at the access. Is it steep? Do we have to deal with safety issues when we're walking around on the roof?
Of course.
So that adds to the cost of the building. And getting on the roof, is there access, or is there a hatch? Or do we have to get ladders or boom lifts to get up there and look at the roof system? So it always varies, and that's why when people ask me about numbers, I always have to say, please just give me your address. I'll have a look at your building and I'll get back to you.
Absolutely.
Because it's not something you just whip off the top of your head.
Right, okay.
Not properly anyways.
Leonard, thank you for your call. Lines are open, 604-280-0650. From out of town, it's 1-877-280-0650. This is Key Pacific's Talk About Strata with Tony Giventu, and our guest is Sean Lang from Interprovincial Roof Consultants. I'm Sterling Fox, and we'll be right back.
There's still more ahead with Experts on Call, the show focused on delivering relevant and beneficial consumer information. This is Experts on Call on AM 650.